All right. Well, I'm sitting here looking at a blank canvas, which is just amazing. So, what I need to do is I need to design a system Adam might be upset that I'm streaming some of this, but whatever. He can be upset. He likes to keep things more secret than I do. Also, I don't think anybody watches me, so it doesn't matter. So, alright, let's think. We have. Gosh, I need like actual design docs for this stuff. So let's see. Need that design doc for mission system. Okay, so let's see what I've got going on. So let's see, what is the purpose? So purpose. Alright, so let's see, the mission system. So why don't we just do single player? The purpose of this system is to drive player re-engagement and provide people playing the game so that online games can be formed, as we need more people. We need enough people online to actually have a real match. Alright, so this is a series of increasing challenges for users in which they are graded based on their performance and can compare their performance against others and show off how good they are. This is a safe area for users to own their skills while they practice. Directly engaging other people, because that can be scary. Alright, so what kind of missions do we have? We have global missions. So these are missions that a user can always select and are always available. I guess we'd also have like maybe daily missions or weekly missions. These are missions that are unique to their time span, and players get, I don't know, special points for. for completing and being the best at. So what does the user profile even have? So if we have a user, like what sort of data are we going to start, like, because we need to start tracking data on this. So one of the tenets of like a mission system is we also need some meta level progression. So we got a user, we're going to want I guess single player stats, and I guess maybe I could maybe offline play stats and then online play stats. So what would these have? What do we have on a user? I need to get organized. Because I got no design to graft onto, so it's difficult. So online play is play on official servers. We must be logged in and connected to an official server to track Well, I mean, does this mean we have to have a profile page? We gotta have all sorts of stuff, so if we have play stats, okay, so what are our stats? Let's see, we're gonna have victory, like what kind of format do we want our stats to be in? Like we could have, you know, stats be like stat name and then stat value, and then we could just fetch a giant list of stats for a user, and that'd be kind of like this, or we could have kind of an enum of stat names or whatever and stat values, and so we search in the database to be like select all the stats for specific user ID. I mean, this would be a more regular searchable thing, so we could build high score tables based on the results of this. So, I mean, I guess maybe a generic stat system. So, what we'd want would be, and this would be like stat context. So it'd be the types. What this would be a string. This would be a string. This would be a string. And this would be an integer. Something like that. So we'd have these big stats tables, which we would then use to create our stats from. So that would be kind of our storage. All right. I mean, that's a real classical way of storing data. So let's say we wanted to get the top 10 users in the last week in terms of raw stats. Well, we don't have last modified or something like that. So let's think about that. Like if we had this table and top 10 scores in the last week, we would need to know, like we'd have to have stats probably for that time series, like stats in the last week, and that needs to be scrubbed every so often. So we would have like permanent stats and then temporary stats? That seems kind of... Seems like what we'd have to have if we wanted, more specific, like in the last week. Because we could store a timestamp in the stats, but if we store a timestamp in the stats, then we know when it was last modified, but we don't know how many in the last week. So, you could say like, well, we could write multiple rows out and then do like some diff system, but that's waste of an incredible amount of memory. So if we wanted time series databases, we would have to have stats in different buckets. So what we'd want would be multiple tables. So we'd have like an all-time stats, kind of a monthly stats, so this would be all-time recorded stats. This would be stats reset when developers choose. And then these are just stats based on regular intervals. So I guess we'd have just separate data tables for all this crap. And that's kind of what we would do. So if we wanted to get a monthly, weekly, seasonal, or all-time high score on something, we could do this sort of thing. And we could also cache answers if we wanted to. So let's say we have, like, I want the top. I guess we'd also maybe want reports, such as we could have our history. So it would be like monthly, like history table. Alright, so how would stats history? Alright, well, we obviously need the user ID, the string, the context. We could store them in, like, this would be what, interval start? So with this, we'd be able to say fetch from, I want this week's high score table from this time series. Like if we wanted the top 10 daily stats, we would have interval start and end, we would want the user and everything like that. But how would we bring this in here? So we'd have our stats history, and we might have a stats report cache. Now, do we want these per level or whatever? Like the top 10 people on, this one specific, grasslands level for this time period. And that could be stat context again, where we could have multiple contexts and record the stats. It's a lot of damn numbers, though. Maybe we should just go simple to start with and have a design that scales out if we needed to. But this data would allow us to create a high score table from it based on the specific stats. So we kind of need a regularly scheduled process, which will take from daily, weekly, monthly when it rolls over, and archive the history for that. So we'd have like a top X users for each stat, and we would put those into the history database. So we need what's a good symbol for that. And this would also work for missions, because we would have like the stack context for a mission would be like user ID, mission 5, score, and then the value would be 5 or whatever. Like you got 5 scores in 30 seconds. Boom, daily, your stats are recorded, so you're good to go. So the other question would be, do missions need a separate stat storage? Because this is good for stats, but let's say that we have a history of results for yourself. So if we have a mission that's like, we got something, it's like score the most in 30 seconds. And if we had a screen, and on that screen we wanted, like, your username, and we'd say, the date, we would have then the scores, and then we'd have like, your result, which would be like 5. And then we might have, 7 a.m. or something, you played it again and you got 15. And we'd also have your top ranked one. So I guess I could see us storing stats with a history of them, and then a max. Oh, Jesus Christ. Historical stats, what a mess. So I guess we need another sort of stat, which is a historical stat. And I could see all the same sort of problems going into it. The issue with historical stats are that we would have Would we want to return? Ah, man, I wouldn't want to keep a hold of these stats forever. We'd want basically a report time. I mean, the report time could be. I mean, we could have like here your last 10, and it's like, there you go, there's just the last 10. That's what you can see. And then the report time this is just historical stats, and there's nothing really else to it, and the highest number goes into your actual stats storage. So it'd say like you attempted this challenge, 200 times, you'd be able to see the last 10 and then your best. So historical stats, what would do we need like monthly, seasonal, daily bullshit for that? For historical stats, I could see us using, I could see that happening, just being like, I want to know the last 10 attempts for like a daily or weekly mission or challenge or whatever the hell. So historical stats in the database. What's the actual operation here? Like, when we do an insert, would we also have a delete in there for these guys? Is there an efficient way to do that? Like, we could just do like an insert replace with an actual index. Good morning, Karakan. I'm doing tech design for stats and all the systems that'll need to back all the features that we need for the game in terms of recording data and building out things that we need. Because this is just a historical list of results. It's not actually a stat. Well, it is a stat, but there's more to it. So there's like stat value, and then there's like another thing here, which would be stat category or something. So, and this is also database design sort of stuff, so it might be a little dry and a little bit stupid, and might not make the most sense all the time. This is a different kind of design. So also, I'm not sure Adam really, like, he's more secretive about like mission systems and progression and all this other shit, but if I'm gonna stream any of the development in this game, I kinda have to stream some of this, so don't tell Adam I'm talking about missions and stats, because he'll get upset about it. Actually, he won't, but okay, so historical stats, these aren't really stats, these are results. So, result should be what this is. So this is not a historical stats, this is a historical results storage in the database. Okay, that makes more sense to me. So this would be user 5 at 2 this morning for online play, mission 1, got a gold medal, and the value was 55. So that means that they defeated the challenge, the value is 55. So what sort of challenges would have a value like that? And do we need more than one? So if we had a challenge that was score as much as you can in 30 seconds, that would be the number of scores. If we had how many fat sack bounces, that would be the number of bounces. If we had a more complex stat such as, well, is there a case where we actually want a minimum, such as avoid all the bots who are in hard mode trying to punch you and get hit the least number of times in 10 seconds or some shit? I mean, that's still just an invert for the results. Though I wouldn't like that. I don't like that because people can tie for ideal place. So we're probably going to avoid that sort of stuff where it's, you know, you can't get in the top 10 because everybody in the top 10 has a 0 for the number of hits they have, and then it's just alphabetical order for your name. Or who did it first. That's not a fun high score table. Could the result context be... Yeah, okay. Do we have multiple values? So let's think about multiple values for a second. If we have a challenge that has more than one success criteria, I mean, we can always combine two separate success criteria into the same. You know, like score of 55, and just, if it's like you get one point for punching somebody and 3 points for kicking them, and 10 points for knocking them into the goal, it's still, just add up all the points, and that's how many points the person got, and then we can evaluate it. Yeah, it just goes, yeah, everybody has finished it, and but there are other things where an actual time could make a difference, like I could see the stat value being complete an obstacle course, and basically the minimum time is like, say people bottomed out at 13 seconds to get through it. Well, we could do sub-seconds, so milliseconds in there. As long as it doesn't have a hard 0 or some shit, then it's okay. Alright, so let me write this down. The stat value can be things such as score, time to complete the challenge, or combined stats such as a score tally for hitting people. Yeah, well, I mean, 1 millisecond, right? Buy a better machine, get those frames back. I mean, do we also need not just a stats database, but also a results database for your best? So if we had the results database, what would it look like? We'd want the report time and context, name, result, and stat value. So it would be the results storage. It'd be a different table though, just because of searching? Why would we have two tables though if these are the exact same table, and this one is results storage and this one is, this one's historical, so we have, this would be up to 10 results per unique key per user, and this other one would just be this would be 1 result per user, which is their best. Well, the reason we'd have it in multiple is because if we ask the question, give me the top 10 here, it would automatically deduplicate users, so we'd only have one user. You know, if like the top 10 was all the same dude, he couldn't actually win all top 10 positions. He would only get one of them, unless we did like a group by unique user ID, order by stat value. In which case that would work, but the database might be working more to get that answer. The other thing is the historical results. What we might do is on a daily basis scrub it. So, alright. Because that would allow us to easily insert stuff. So, like a daily wipe to trim to last 10 results per user per context line. How would we do that though? How would we enforce this rule? Basically, we go through and drop How would we enforce the trimming? Like if we just shoved stuff in here and didn't insert, how would we go through and trim the last 10 for a user? We could just have if we did the trimming when we inserted, we have all the information as to what to delete. So we can just delete things. If we do it later, we don't have any information as to what keys have been touched unless we record it. And you can't very well just scan the whole damn database and do that. That's just stupid. So I guess we need to trim this. This will need to be trimmed inline as results are inserted. That's just the only way we can do it. Stay in the air closest to the respawn area. Yeah. I'll give you style points. Okay, so we have historical results, and then we have result storage in the database. So, and I think we'd have the same sorts of things, like we might have the all-time results. And just because I'm writing these things down doesn't mean they'd exist. Usually what you do with these sorts of designs is you take it to the absolute extreme. So, you know, usually if you make a system, somebody says, hey, I want to do some stats. It's important to kind of design the system out for the worst case scenario, which is a whole bunch of different shit all over the place, so that when you actually just implement like maybe daily stats and all-time stats, you're fine. But then somebody comes back and they're like, hey, you know, I really want this seasonal stats table, you know, or like I want to reset all-time stats, so you know that we like updated the game to the next version and all the previous high scores are like total trash. So what we'd want to do is like change it to seasonal stats, and like the seasonal stats actually is not a season, but it's the patch release. So it's like for update 5, the maximum was this. So, you know, that's a season. Who gives a damn? And then we got our history, so it'd be like, well, pre-update 5, Jeff was on top, but after that, we did an update where Jeff will no longer be number 1 regardless, just because it docks points based on his name. So it looks like we need stats for basic stuff, and that'll give us high score tables for actual games and progression for people like that. Then we need results, and results are going to be more based on missions. They're not going to be results. Like, in this system could also give you the top 10 plays, like you know, a mission could just be online game mission. And that would be who got the most scores in a match. Alright, let's think about it. So if we have a 3v3 match and we want to know, is it going to be on a per player basis? Are these cumulative stats? Who played the most? Well, we just keep replacing the same stat with an increment if it was cumulative. Well, I could see this working. If we had a 3v3 and we wanted to know who did the most scoring, we'd have to keep track of quite a bit of stats. That's kind of the problem is you start tracking one stat and you need to track like 200, and then all of a sudden you're tracking a shitload of information for all your users, and it's just a massive amount of data. So I think this needs to go into a stats database, entirely separate from the account database. So this needs to go in its own database entirely. So we have a brand new database here. It is called the Stats and History database. And it's going to have all this crap in it. That way, if we need to shard it out, we can. Alright. So what this will give us, I can see the last 10 attempts that I had. I can see, I've got the results for my daily results for myself going up for how many victories in today. Online, offline, number of scores, assists, own goals. We don't have achievements, but so that would be such as I got top tier for something. Though that's not entirely true. We have the stats historical database. Do we need a results historical database? Yeah, it looks like we do. So again, the stats and results are kind of mirroring each other. The only difference is the report time and the result string. So I think we need something else here. We need interval end and interval start, but we also need, like, we have stat context here, but that's like online or offline. We need an interval context in here, is what I think. So we need interval context. So this would be like weekly, daily, monthly, or all time, or whatever. That's our interval context. Structured data, it's a thing. Welcome to the 80s. They still store all your data. So we have result context is going to be offline, and this will be, I guess, mission 1.scores, something like this. Come on, I'm trying to select that. Please let me select that. Okay, so we have our history, we have our stat storage. That's actually looking pretty decent. We're going to need a lot of different stat types. Alright, so why don't we put this up here. So we're going to have different types of stats, right? So some of them will be like accumulated. So this would be such as victories today. Like so when we do a report, alright, so we need like aggregated stats, accumulated stats. God, do we want more crap? Like, do we want average stats on things? Like, ugh. In the past 5 games, you averaged 5 scores per. No, I don't think so. Okay, so we have a user, and we have all this crap on him. So here's our history. We'll have our best and all that stuff. So history results up to 10. Results storage, 1 per user, which is your best. This is your stuff here. Alright. You have to run? Yeah, well, you got busy things that you gotta do, right? Alright, well, I think that'll do stats, that'll do results, that'll allow us to keep track of all our mission data, that'll allow us to compete against other people with high scores and other things like that on basis like that. So we need regular stuff. Hello, Chris Goku. Welcome. I am trying to design some of the back-end systems which will support some of the features that we want going on. A lot of it has to do with meta level progression for users, high scores, missions, and all that sort of stuff. And since we're storing this all in the back end, you know, it needs to be in kind of a regular form. So, yeah. So the question is, where is this regular wipe of the cache going to exist? Do I have any concept of a master server in my server stack? Like, I think I have a concept of a relay server, an app server, but let's go check if we actually have a master assumption. We have broadcasting, telemetry, watchdog services, relay. So we have a relay master coordinator. But I don't think we have another master server. Like, we just, yeah. Just a game browser. Server, yeah. So if we don't have a master server, basically what that means is... Did I just close everything? I only wanted to close one thing, Vizio. I didn't want to close everything. Because I know kind of our server setup right now looks like... Well, this is all in the same process at the moment. Yeah, so we've got the entitlement, the platform, relay, And we have the telemetry databases. So like this is our server setup at the moment. Basically how everything works. These are memcache, these are actual MySQL or Aurora. But we don't have an app server master, so if we want to do a scrub on some of these things, we don't actually have a server that can do this on a singular basis. Alright, Caracan, have a good one. Enjoy the rest of your day, and good luck there in Spain. So do we need to make an app server master? Like if we had an app server master, then I mean probably the answer is we just should have an app master. So we need to make an app master. Alright. Oh, you won't leave for that quite yet. Alright, cool. Alright. So if we get an app server master, we're going to want the same thing with a platform lock. Let's see if there's already a platform lock. There is not a platform lock. There is a relay master lock, but yeah, it doesn't exist. Alright. So I just need an app server master, so I have a single place that can do the regular wipes of all the information and do all that, because I don't want to rely on Jenkins to do any of that stuff, because I want Jenkins to be kind of a... I need this to be standalone. Now the other question would be, should we have a single service which is literally just the app master, or should we have the app servers do what the relay server does and one of them just assumes the master role? I'd say one of them assumes the master role. It shouldn't be a big deal, because we're not going to put too much on this guy. We're just going to... make him be the single place to do these things. Okay, so we got that. We've got our server set up. So we're going to have another database down here, which is going to be our stats database. Okay, so how are we going to deal with missions?